today, and we are going to be talking about mental health and her organization, Mecca, and just kind of trying to bridge the gap between, mental health and what it means in Pakistan and how to get access to the underprivileged and what Maryam is doing and what strives she has made so far with her organization to kind of accomplish that goal and just to pave that path for other people also to take that initiative. So I'm gonna give this to Maryam now. Maryam, can you please introduce yourself, and then we'll start off with the questions after that.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much, Rami, for having me. My name is Maryam Owais, and I am the founder of Mecca. Mecca stands for Mental Education and Care Association, and I am currently aspiring to be a psychologist. And with Mecca, I aim to raise mental health awareness in Pakistan.
Okay, perfect. With that being said, I'm gonna just open up my phone and go to the first question. Okay, so this first question has to do with the fact that have you ever personally felt there is stigmatization when it comes to mental health in Pakistan?
Oh, yes, for sure. I definitely have. And I think this is something that I felt very early on in my life. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do something in this field. I feel like in Pakistan, I think that, it's a kind of a place where if you have a fever or if you break your leg, you rush to see a doctor. But if you have any sort of a mental health related concern, people shy away from talking about it. I mean, I used to see people around me, even now I see people around me, dealing with so many different mental health related concerns, but they wouldn't seek help because they'd say things like, you know what, if I tell my family members, they'll think I'm crazy or I'm mad. And, I remember when I was a student in one of, in a grade school over here in Lahore, I went to the principal and I requested to them that I wanted to start a psychology club.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a time where there were 100 different clubs in our school, extracurricular activities. So I went to him with this great proposal and, different counseling services that could be provided to the students. And the principal straight up said, no, our students don't feel stressed out. And that was the day I realized that, oh my God, people over here are not really very aware of how important mental health actually is. And so, yes, definitely, I have seen this stigma around me for a very, very long time now. And I think with Mecca, we're aiming to break exactly that.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think that's so true. Like, stigmatization really surrounds so many issues in Pakistan, so many topics, but with mental health, we're always pushed back and we're always told not to talk about mental health and specific topics relating to mental health. So I think it's so important to kind of push back to that and kind of say no, this is what it is, and to raise awareness. And I think it's just so great that you from the get-go as a child, for example, from grade school, you were kind of pushing for that. And I'm so glad you led with that and actually came up with the whole platform of where people can actually talk about this. So I think that's super great. And then, so this second question is, what does mental health mean to you?
So for me, mental health is, it's a very important part of your health, and it's just as important as physical health.
Sure.
It entails your emotional and your psychological well-being, just the way you think and the way you feel,
right,
and the way you understand and perceive things around you, which ultimately leads you to behave or act a certain way. And I think it's just so important to prioritize your mental health,
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with you. It needs to have a scope where we talk about physical health, but then mental health is also important. In schools, we have nurses, but we don't have counselors. So I think it's super important to kind of bridge that gap and see what we're doing to kind of provide mental well-being and physical well-being to our citizens and students all over the world. So I think that's super important. And then, so
Right.
My third question is, what is Mecca?
So Mecca, as I said earlier, Mecca is a mental health organization which stands for Mental Education and Care Association. We are actually the first ever non-profit organization in Pakistan that was created to raise awareness and to just break the stigma around mental health. And that's what we do. We raise awareness, we educate people, we conduct workshops, and currently we're not a counseling service, but what we do is that we connect people with great psychologists in Lahore, in different cities of Pakistan, in Islamabad, and because that's also very, very difficult. People struggle to find good psychologists. They don't know who to go to, and so we are very particular about quality in our team, and so we connect them to all these great psychologists, and that's what Mecca is about. By and large, just to raise awareness and just to enable people to feel comfortable to talk about mental health.
Definitely, yeah, perfect. That kind of sums up what Mecca is. That's great. And then the fourth question is, what inspired you to come up with this initiative?
Or like I said, Ramin, when at a very young age, I used to see people shying away from talking about it, and Ramin, this is something. Every single person goes through a mental health related concern at least once in their life.
Definitely.
It's like we're really lying to ourselves if you're saying we never feel stressed out and we never feel anxious and we never feel, all those things,
Right.
So I feel like when I went through all of this very early on in my life, I felt like there was no one around me who was, sort of there to guide me and tell me, this is what you need to do, and these are, you actually need to go to a professional. I didn't even know what back then, what this whole thing was.
For sure.
So when I didn't have that in my life, when I started to have a little bit more awareness, I decided to be that guidance in somebody else's life, and I decided to act, and just channel all my anxiety and stress into just helping somebody else who might need this help. So that's what inspired me. That's what inspires me every single day. Just every time I feel stressed out, I'm like, there's somebody out there who's feeling this way, and I need to help them.
Right.
So that's what inspires me every single day.
For sure. And I think it's so important to kind of derive from your own vulnerabilities, and to create a platform that will help people pass those vulnerabilities, because you went through certain things, and then you want other people to also go through those things, but also to kind of prevent other people to also from going through those things. So I think it's super important to create something out of whatever we felt, and kind of create a platform for other people. So you did that, and I think that's super amazing to gain into inspiration from your own vulnerabilities.
You can either allow all of these negative experiences to break you, or you can channel that into something positive and give the world something positive. Right?
Sure.
So that is also one thing we promote at Mecca, that you can be the light in someone's life which you didn't have in your life.
Definitely.
So that's the whole idea.
And that sums it up. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the fifth question is, there are two parts to this question, so I'll just break them down for you.
Right.
Do you think the term mental health is a privileged coined term?
Oh yes, for sure. And I can say this now because I have worked with the underprivileged community, and so I understand that for them, for them it's like they're not even aware of physical health so much. They don't know so many diseases. Even right now, if you go ask them and talk about coronavirus with them, they wouldn't know. So
exactly.
They're not really very aware of they're not educated enough to be aware of the basic things, So
sure.
Mental health for them, for us, for people, educated people like us, it comes second sometimes, Unfortunately,
sure.
It does. For them, it's they're not aware of this at all. So when we started working with them, it was hard for us to explain to them why it's important. And it was a very sensitive area. We had to be very careful with the kind of language we use with them, and with how we just talked about this particular thing with them. But eventually, it was great to see that they understood what it was. So while it is something that is catered to everybody, mental health is something that everybody needs to take care of. It is definitely right now, unfortunately, I think more for the privileged community than the underprivileged.
Definitely, yeah. And then the second part of this question is, what has Mecca as an organization done to effectively tackle this?
Okay, so under Mecca, we have various segments, and one of the segments called Betak. Betak literally means sitting down together and just talking about, something. So
Right.
for me, this segment was very important because when I started Mecca, I was like, okay, we're working for students and the elderly and, the teachers. We're working for different kinds of people. But what about the underprivileged community? Because they need it just as much as the rest of us. Sometimes even I feel like more, because for them, they are dealing with such serious issues like drug addiction, domestic violence, so many, pregnancy, because their birth rate there is like, very high. So the stress that comes with pregnancy, so many things that they're dealing with, the stress that comes with poverty. So for me, this was very important. That's why I came up with Better. And under Better, what we do is that we conduct workshops for the underprivileged community. We provide them free of cost counseling services. We make sure we take our psychologists with us, and we make sure we communicate with them in their language so that it's understandable, in Urdu, Punjabi, Saraiki, whatever they're comfortable with. We opt for that language while talking to them. Right. Obviously, we have experts with us on board to talk to them and understand them better. But so far, we've seen a very, very, overwhelming response. They've been so happy. Every time they crave, they crave the fact that somebody comes to them and talk to them, and it makes them so happy. And so far, the response has been amazing.
For sure, I bet. And I think it's just important to talk about this question because, like, for example, when I was in school, like, I knew that there was a thing such as, mental health, psychology, but I just didn't know exactly, like, what the working was, what the inner working was. So, like, if somebody like me who's going to schools, who's getting a decent education, and I still don't know, like, the true core of, like, what mental health is and linking it back to psychology and trying to figure things out, then, how would somebody who hasn't been going to school their whole life, like, how would they know what's what? So I wanted to ask you that question specifically just to, like, get an insight as to what you were doing or, like, what you knew. So I think, like I said, it was my understanding that this was going on, but I think it's really interesting that you were trying to create a change from, like, an internal system. So you're going into and, like, you're talking to people directly versus, kind of just speaking about things. You're actually, like, taking action and doing things. And I think that's super important when it comes to mental health and mental health awareness, because we talk, we say things, but it's super important to implement and, like, act on those things. So I think that's like an amazing segment and initiative coming out from you guys. Great to know. And then, so my sixth question is, can you talk about the different segments that you have implemented so far? I know we just talked about Better, but I know you have other segments as well. So can you just introduce them briefly?
Okay, so Betak, I've explained Betak already. Other than Betak, we have two other segments. The first one is, of course, our workshops. So we conduct both private workshops and we conduct workshops in various educational institutions, various schools, colleges, universities. So initially, it's very interesting. Initially, we started off by conducting private workshops. And this is going to give you an insight of the impact also of the work that we've done so far.
Right.
First, we approached a school, and this was before we had a name, before we started anything, and the school rejected us and said, no, you know what, our students don't need any workshops. And for me, that was it was bothering me so much. Why are they saying that? This is so important. So I said, you know what, I'll just conduct private workshops. The more private workshops we conducted, the more schools started to get familiarized with the work that we do, and the students spoke up and they wanted us there, so then we got invited by that three schools that initially said no to us, and so we went there and we conducted workshops. And so now we go to various universities and schools on, like, a monthly basis. We've signed contracts with certain schools where they call us on a monthly basis, and then we conduct workshops over there. Obviously, because of the situation right now, it's kind of on a pause, but that's what we do under our workshops. And these workshops are mostly conducted by our psychologists, especially our private workshops.
Right.
And the ones for the younger students are conducted by me and my team members. The second segment is actually very, very, I love that segment. Personally, It's very close to my heart. This one's called the Breathing Lounge, and it's basically like a self-help support group session. I don't know if you know how that works, but what happens is that about 10 to 15 people register for it, and there's going to be a topic like, for example, bullying.
Right.
So the people who have experienced it, the people who've been through it, they'll come in that session, and we'll all like sort of sit together and talk about it and share our experiences and how we coped with it, how every single person sitting there coped with it. And it's so interesting because what we learn in this segment is how every person is so different, and they have such a different outlook on
Definitely.
every situation that we all go through or deal with.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if there's 10, 15 people, will have 10, 15 ways of understanding, how to deal with that particular situation.
Exactly.
So it's an environment where we try to create a non-judgmental environment. It's always nice to have a bunch of strangers coming in, talking together, just relaxing, just
For sure.
venting and just talking about their feelings. And so that's what the breathing lounge is about. That's why the name breathing lounge, just so it could be a breather for the people.
Right.
They can come in and they can relax. This is mostly to work for the younger lot. I've noticed a lot of students come to the breathing lounge, and so it's a very fun segment. And of course, the third one I've already spoken about. It's a Betuk.
Yeah.
And right now we're very active on our social media, so we're conducting online live sessions as well. We're answering questions of people where we have psychologists on board with us who answer the questions for people, whoever send in their questions and concerns. So right now we're also working actively on our social media platforms.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. And then going off of that, I feel like it's so true to like kind of have a safe haven where you can talk and you can, have a breather, and you can like actually like think that, I'm in a safe space right now. And I feel like just communication, like just in communication, there's so much healing. And just like in talking and listening, like there's such a equilibrium that's reached. And I think that's such a good way and platform of, trying to get help, especially for students like who want to be able to, get their feelings out, and they don't want to talk to their parents or like their teachers or their friends.
Yes.
Being in school, like I had like a thing in my, like, I mean, I was 13, 14 years old. I was so confused now. I was like, who do I talk to? I don't want to talk to my friends or my parents or anybody. So I think if I had something like that in my, like, when I was in school, it would have helped me so much, because like, yeah, when you're 13, 14, you don't have like the biggest challenges in your life for sure, but at that moment they seem so like pivotal to you that you're like, oh my god, where do I put all of this? So I think it's really important to kind of pave that way for people like you, and then also for students to like, join and talk and like take initiative and, kind of get what they're feeling out there, because so much of our mental state impacts like so many other things in our life, like education, what we're trying to do, our relationships with people. So when we are clear and organized, like within ourselves and like in our own minds, that's when we can, kind of take that leap and kind of be better people as well in society. So I think it all really starts with the mental health. So I think it's super great that you're kind of like, taking and doing things from like the ground up, and that like enables people to build on themselves also. So I like how you're providing like a foundation, which is super important.
Yes.
And then, so my seventh question, I would say is, what do you think can be the next active and consciously implemented step to not only raise awareness for mental health, but also shift our focus from speaking about mental health to catering to our people's needs that have certain topics or questions and not enough resources or awareness to ask for help?
All right. Okay. So I feel like we need to introduce reforms like on a management level.
For sure.
We constantly, encourage people to speak up, to talk about their feelings, but where do they go? So many students can't even afford therapy, so many
Right.
students cannot afford to seek help.
For
So
sure.
what do you do for such people? In my opinion, I think it's important to introduce different types of psychologists in different educational institutions, not just there, even in industries and companies,
For sure.
industrial psychologists,
For sure.
we are generally not aware of the fact that there's so many different kinds of psychologists, and we don't just need a clinical and a counseling psychologist. There's
Definitely.
so many different things that we need. So on a junior level, we need to introduce child psychologists. We need to have educational psychologists for the teachers. We need to have industrial psychologists in companies. We need to have counseling and clinical psychologists for for the adults and for students and for different communities. So
For
we
sure.
need to have committees and psychology clubs and proper facilities in different organizations and different schools, and not just schools, even on private level. I feel like we need to have more facilities for people, which are, I think so far, if we have practices, we have a certain amount of, fee that they have to pay for those sessions. So there should be
Exactly.
sessions for people who cannot afford it as well, by
sure.
psychologists that are trained and properly equipped at their jobs, because that's also something that's, we lack that in Pakistan. We don't have that over here. So
Definitely.
we need to have all of that. And moreover, I feel like we need to introduce a good educational system for students who want to pursue a career in psychology, because this is a struggle, that I had to really deal with, because when I started off, there were almost like only 2-3 universities that were offering a degree in psychology, and they weren't too great.
Right.
All the top universities in Pakistan are not offering an undergrad level degree in psychology and different fields of psychology,
Right.
child psychology, clinical psychology. We only have applied psychology over here. So
Right.
that itself is a dilemma. Like, why is that happening?
Right.
So
for
I
sure.
feel like when we start educating people, when we start telling people about it, we also need to provide them with proper facilities in order for them to go and take an action and
Definitely.
improve their mental health. And so I would really say that, our government needs to take this action. Our schools and authorities need to take this action.
Definitely. And like going back to what you said, I always was really like into psychology and like everything. And up until like when I was in grade 12, when I was doing AP psychology, I didn't realize that there were so many like diverse fields of psychology, like educational, clinical, adolescent, normal, like the fields in themselves, like they're so vast and diverse, like social psychology, like it's not just one thing that you can study when it comes to psychology, like you said. And like you said again, every part of our countries, like every part of our economy, our schools, our industries, like they all need psychologists. So I think it's super great that like you also feel like there is like a gap that needs filling, and I really hope that in the years to come we're able to get those gaps fulfilled for like not just our betterment, but I feel like the betterment for our countries and our systems, because psychologists really do come and lay out foundations for people so that they can achieve and they can succeed in life and they can grow. So I really hope that the conversation from psychology to mental health also shifts beyond just these two things and like leaps into our industries as well and our countries. So I think you said it in like a very wonderful way, and I definitely agree with you on that. And
Yeah,
then
Rami, so many people over here tend to say that, psychology has no scope.
right,
And that
exactly.
really drives me crazy, because, the fact that there is a lack of something means that there is scope for you
For
to
sure.
do something over there,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
we all need to make we need to come up with the facilities to provide students to work over there in order for them
Definitely.
to like believe that there is scope for this. It's a very underrated profession, and it's the need of the hour. I would say it's the need of the hour right now.
For sure. And also with the whole COVID-19 thing going on, like people are getting access for like, their physical symptoms and everything. But what about survivors who come out of it? Like, what about their experiences? Like, what if they're scared now to go out and like do things in the world because they were diagnosed with this one thing and they don't have the resources now like to get that access? So right now, like we have like a physical health like gap of dealing with this whole thing for COVID-19, but we also have like a mental health gap. So you are right, like the need of the hour is like now and it's here. So I really hope that the government also like kind of figures out that during this whole thing that's going on, that there is a gap and they need to do something about it. So yeah, no, definitely I agree with you on that as well. And then so this is one of my last questions, and also I'll break this down into like two parts as well. What is the best way to reach out to Mecca and ask questions or seek help?
Okay, so right now we are active on our social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook, and we've also put up our email address out there. Mm-hmm. You can send us a message on our either of our pages, and obviously get in touch with us, and we will most definitely get in touch with you. And then if you need to talk to us over a call, we will definitely provide you with our number, and then that's how we connect with anybody who gets in touch with us.
Okay, perfect. And then the second part, leading off of that, When someone does reach out and seek support from Mecca, what would that look like for them?
Well, Ramin, hopefully we try to, our aim is to make them realize that they are our priority and
Right,
that they matter,
for sure.
and it's okay to feel what they're feeling, to make them believe that it's okay, because so many of the people, what they try to, the fact that they're feeling a certain way gives them anxiety. Why am I feeling this? Why am I feeling this? So we try to make them understand that it's okay that you're feeling that way. It's
Definitely.
completely normal. You are not alone. And what we try to do is that we try to make them feel comfortable when they talk about whatever they want to talk about, and we try to connect them with a psychologist if we feel like they need serious help, or if we feel like they need, professional help. We definitely connect them with our psychologist. And for those people who cannot afford therapy, we provide them with, free counseling services. Right now, we aren't a consultancy, but we do have psychologists who provide a free therapy to people who cannot afford it. So that's the most we can do, for anybody who can reach out to us.
Definitely, definitely. That sounds great. Okay, perfect. And then just to kind of end it off, do you have anything you would like to add on? Like, I know we spoke about Mecca and like everything and mental health, but would you like to say something to people who are like viewing this or watching this?
Yes, I would. I would just like to conclude by saying that first and foremost, definitely, it is something that we're all working towards. Breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. But I feel like the conversation has started, and that itself is the first step. Towards change. I mean, 10 years ago, people wouldn't even think about talking about this, but now we're taking this first step, and we see people talking about it, and we encourage people to talk about what they're feeling. But having said that, we would also encourage everybody, who is watching right now, I would encourage you to listen, because while speaking up is important, listening is very important. There's no point in speaking up when there's nobody around you to listen, right?
Exactly.
So hopefully, when we're both, when we're all willing to do both of these things, speaking up and listening, we will be able to create a world where it will be okay to talk about, mental health, and where people will just be happier. And I would just like to end by saying that, let's be kind, empathetic, and compassionate towards others and towards ourselves.
Definitely. I think that was so like perfectly said, because you are right. Like we can speak into like a wall, like, and like then we'd just be speaking into a wall, right? But if there's nobody like to listen to us, then what's the point of speaking? So I think that's super true, and that like goes to say it goes to say that communication has to be had like both ways, the talking and the listening. So I think that's super, super, super true. And thank you so much again, Maryam, for doing this. I think what you're doing is super great, and it's so great, like to kind of see people taking on that path and taking on this role in Pakistan. And I feel like it's really important to have like a focal point or like a focal leader who is trying to pave a path for people, and then also for other people to like follow and like to take that course and to basically be like a part of this, because you are like the focal point, but then you want people to take part, take initiative. And when you do that, people do come and they do talk about their problems, and they do spread that awareness, and they are free to talk about their feelings. So I think it's so great that you are doing this.
Thank you so much, Rami, for having me. And I think we wouldn't be anything if there wouldn't be people like you supporting our cause, and people like you, telling us that our work matters. And so this means everything to us. And
For sure.
hopefully we will continue to do that if we have, support of people like you with us. So thank you so much for
For
all the
sure.
love and support.
For sure. Thank you so much, Mariam.